The opinions expressed on the radio program by the hosts, co hosts, guests, and call in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Genesis Radio, www.genesisradio.com, Genesis Radio's owners, management, or affiliates.
Good evening and welcome to GenesisRadio.com. My name is Kendall Stevenson and I am the host of The Empowerment Show. The Empowerment Show is part of unity in the community. We're always here trying to bring the community closer and closer together. So if you look around, you'll actually see that the community is much smaller than you think it is. We only think it's so big, and that's probably due to all the diversity that we have and all the nonsense going around. So as always, we try to start off with something that we can be grateful for. As I state, when you wake up in the morning, that usually should be one of the first things you do. You should be grateful for that first breath because we don't remember when we're sleeping how we breathe. We don't remember that it takes a lot for our body to take that first breath in the morning. So I'm always grateful for taking that first breath. It helps me to take that first step. This evening, we have a young man with us. He is a co-chair of the Black Caucus. For all of you who don't know what the Black Caucus is, I give him an opportunity to explain it. I call him Mr. Michael D. That's because I don't speak French. You can't pronounce his last name. But I'll let him introduce himself. How are you, Michael?
Hey, what's up, man? Kendall, thank you for bringing me to the show. I've been dying to come onto the show, and scheduling conflicts has always been there, but luckily I was able to make it. The last name is DeRosier.
DeRosier.
Yes.
DeRosier.
It rolls off the tongue, DeRosier.
Yeah.
Haitian descent.
Right.
So my family has, they're from Haiti, and out of all, I'm the only one that was born here in the States. But nevertheless, I'm very proud to be a Haitian American.
Right on. That sounds good to be proud. So what do you do for the Black Caucus? What's happening with that?
So it's for the Monroe County Democratic Black Caucus, to be specific, not to think I'm the leader of the entire Black community.
Well, you are to me. I mean, we just do Monroe County, so you are to me. You're the leader.
All right, well, thank you. Co-chair with Charlene Williams Edwards. We have developed this program with the subcommittee of the Democratic Party. One of the things, too, is that people get their news or become active in the community with something or an entity that they can identify with.
Right.
And so that was what was missing in that component as far as the Democratic Party is in large part, as far as a club. So we have a subcommittee. Again, the subcommittees of various interests. And so people who come out generally may not come out to the big general meetings. They come out to our meetings, which is the first Fridays of each month. And it has grown so far. And so I'm very proud to be part of that history.
Well, what got you started in this?
Prior to being the co-caucus chair, I was the vice chair of the Monroe County Democratic Party under the chairmanship of Claudette Williams. I don't know if you had her as a guest, but she's also a very active leader in the community. And she brought me on, and I was what you call engaged, and I love the whole community events. I like the idea of bringing people together, sharing knowledge, sharing resources. I think a lot of people in the community, they kind of shy away from it or don't know. But my addition was to bring people who are not familiar with the party, but also its organization and feeling comfortable. I think there's a hesitancy from some people that may think I need to have a certain degree or have to be active. And that's not the case. You just have to have an interest.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Do you need any special education to do what you do?
Not at all. I mean, obviously, education does help, helping to understand, to be aware of your surroundings and local issues and the how the system works, which could be beneficial to you
Mhm.
or the community at large, but also how you could probably change the system if it doesn't work.
Right. Well, but you have to have some education in order to do that because I constantly hear, uh, I hear the young people say, well, college is not for everyone. And you're talking to a person who doesn't want to go to school anyway. They're in high school. They can't wait to get the hell out. So if you give them an excuse not to go, they're not going to go. Not even to try it. I always tell the young people, try it first. You know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I've been out of the game, meaning school, in a
Mhm.
long time. But for when I graduated from high school, part of the component of senior year is to before you get your high school degree, we had to take a civics course,
Mhm.
and which is part to understand local county politics, as well as being able to register to vote. We actually had to go to city council, observe the debates, question council leaders, and they gave us their feedback. I was able to, and that's when I realized the effectiveness of your voice as
Mhm.
well as making that change within the system. So during that session with the council members, I talked about flooding that occurred in my community, in my neighborhood. And they heard, I gave them the specifics, the address, and so forth like that. Do you know, within a month, we had, I guess, not contractors, but civic engineers come to assess the situation, study it, figure it out, and then months later down the line, they fixed the sewer problem.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, all you had to do is use your voice.
Mm.
And I did not know. People, now, keep in mind, every year when it rained or snowed, the neighborhood just complained
Mhm.
about the flood. They just complained. They
Mhm.
sat in the every year after year, barbecue after barbecue, sat and complained
To each other.
to each other,
Yeah.
but never did anything about
Right.
it. I, the high school student, because I was part of my, to be registered, not only to graduate, I had to take part in this class. I used my voice. I saw city council. They looked at it and effective change. And I was able to, obviously, when you graduate, register to vote at that same time. But that's the key. People don't understand that government can work.
Mhm.
Again, you have to understand the system. It's slow,
Mhm.
but if you use your voice and get active, you'd be amazed what you can change.
Well, that's the power of voting because that's the biggest voice you can have, and that's why we want people to make sure that they come down and they vote when it's time to vote.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things too that people don't realize. I think as society, we tend to get distracted easily.
Mhm.
So, when you have an infant and you dangle those plastic keys and they just, oh, they're distracted by it. Um, you're not realizing that while you're distracting it, you're giving them a shot for their benefit,
Mhm.
at a doctor's office or giving them a medicine or something like that. That's what the young voter is, or even any voter for that matter, is distracted by different things, not realizing how the power of their voice, specifically collectively, how effective change you could do. So some people get caught up in the culture wars or some stupidity and not realizing that, "Oh, I'm not going to vote because it doesn't matter." No, it does matter.
I think also it's the policies. I think the younger people they had a lot of problems with the different policies and they didn't know who to vote for. It was like voting for the lesser of the two evils as far as they were concerned. So they were like, I'm not even going to vote because I don't like either one of them.
And I think that's the easy way out.
Hmm.
Just say you're uninformed.
Hmm.
It's not the less of two evils. Just say, I don't understand or I don't know. And it's okay. But seek to understand.
Hmm.
Because I think when you're in high school, an 18-year-old, you're not really concerned about the issues yet, per se. It's going to affect you. But at 18 years old, you're just becoming of who you are, trying to discover who you are. You're dealing with puberty, you're dealing with peer pressure, you're dealing with what I'm going to do while in high school, what I'm going to do post high school. You're still dealing, you're probably under your parents' roof. You want to go on your own, you want to venture out. You don't know what you want to do.
You get a lot of peer pressure.
Yeah, peer pressure. So it's okay not knowing, but to say it doesn't affect you is when When it starts to affect you is when you actually mature and being an adult. I'll say this for example. I remember I moved out of my house. I was old enough. I went to college. I got a job. I was excited. I lived on my own. I was doing well. But then after a while, I moved back to my house. Those things, life happens.
Hmm.
So I moved back to my house, and I remember sleeping on my old bed. And I was like, oh, this bed is not comfortable because for X amount of months, I lived someplace else with
Mm.
a different type of mattress, and I wanted that firm mattress again.
Hmm.
So I told my dad, I said, oh, Dad, I need a new bed. He said, sure. Weeks would go by, months would go by, no new bed. So I would ask him, I said, Mom, Dad, why can't I get a new bed? You're an adult now.
Hmm.
You pay for that
You pay
bed.
for that. That's
And I'm
right.
like, what? And that was the eye opener.
Mm.
So I learned the value of the dollar in a sense because I was earning money. I was not paying rent, but my parents slowly were saying, okay, here's a bill. Here's a utility bill. If you want a bed, here's that.
Hmm.
I had to pay for that. It's again, I'm like, what? And then you look at your check and then you start learning, I need to save. Then you start getting active in like, okay, this is either too many taxes or I need a job, high paying job. Then you start getting an interest in adulthood. Again, in high school, after high school, you're not interested. But as you get older, you're like, okay, I have different interests. Why is this way? And you started getting involved
Mm.
slowly, incrementally.
But you know what they say, life be life, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very much so. Very
yeah,
much so.
you're not going to stop life from life,
No.
and things happen during life. So, and look, I didn't go into college until I was in my 30s.
Okay.
And I ended up getting a master's and actually two. So I'm happy for that. But I would tell anyone, education is definitely the new currency.
Very much. And then
Okay.
to my earlier point, when I said I had to start paying for things,
Hmm.
now I'm listening to candidates who are saying we need to raise the minimum wage.
Mm.
So now it's starting my interest because whatever party or candidate is saying we need to raise the minimum wage, that means that if you raise the minimum wage, then the private sector too will also have to raise the wages.
Mm.
So that's when you start your interest as far as when life happens.
Mm. Well, life happens even a little further because there's some nuances to that. So when they raise the salary, the price gouges the large corporations. What do? They raise the prices on the product like they're doing now.
Mhm.
See, unfortunately, a lot of people don't really understand how the government works, and they see prices going up and they blame it on the government, not realizing that they're coming from the large corporations, and a lot of these large corporations they're actually Trump voters, and they gotta be because in 2025 is the end of the tax cut and tax break. So if Biden at that time were to get in office, he's doing away with that. Now, don't think that Madam Harris is not going to do the same. So to discourage people from voting from them, you raise the prices on goods, right, which is the greedy thing, because they're making record profits, right? So you raise the prices on goods, and you tell them it's the government.
So you raise a good example. Remember, I said earlier the dangling keys in front of a child?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing right now. So the goal of the current Republican Party, there's so many issues, but because you raised a part of taxes, the 2017 tax law that Trump signed into law when he was in office expires in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize that, but those in corporations do.
They certainly do.
And one of the things that's interesting is if you are a union worker, you used to write off your union dues.
Mm.
You used to write off your mileage to go to the union meeting. If you were a union worker, huh?
How about the homeowner?
The homeowner, the mortgage interest. Yes,
You
exactly.
saw how they changed that, right?
They changed all that stuff, and then your interest is like, oh wow, I can't believe this is happening. They're dangling the keys because Trump and his allies would like to make that tax law that he passed in 2017. By the way, his only legislative achievement while being president compared to the current occupant, who has more than one, expires next year. And so his goal, outside of trying to stay out of jail, is to make sure that his friends, along with himself, that tax law becomes permanent. That's what they're trying to do. And yes, we want that to expire. But you also said about inflation. It's easy to blame the government or the president at the time. But again, you're dangling those keys. But if you look at it, and this is where people would have to understand, you recall back in, I want to say, the second Gulf War under Bush too. Okay, we had
that would have had to been the 80s.
No,
early
no,
90s?
Bush. No, I'm talking about early 2000s. George W. Bush.
Okay.
So there was the war in Afghanistan right after 9/11.
Right.
Then he, along with Cheney, went into Iraq. Okay. Now that had nothing to do with 9/11. History already has proven that. But he went into war, and that's when gas spiked at $5 a gallon under Republican. Now, why did gas spike? Because Iraq was producing oil, but now you took their oil out of the world marketplace.
Yeah, they blew up a lot of the
They
oil.
blew up the oil. So now you have little resources that's providing the oil.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand. So what did the airlines do in response? Even cruise ships
Raise their prices.
But not only that, they introduced bag fees.
Oh yeah, now you gotta pay. You gotta pay for your seat.
Well, seats. Yeah, that's a whole different.
No. You pay to get on the plane. That's one price. But in addition to that, you gotta pay for your seat.
Yeah, certain airlines implement certain policies like that.
Yeah.
But my point was they introduced the bag fees to offset the fuel because they said the more people are bringing more bags, therefore the airline fuel in order to get the plane off. But gas prices came down after, I would have to say, the tail end of Obama administration when his first term. He won a second term, gas prices continue to go down. But what, Kendall? Those bag fees still remain.
Of course,
to present day.
Of course they did.
So it's not. Is it the government?
No,
it's or the corporation.
The corporation.
Exactly.
The government don't own the planes.
no, you're regulated, but it's private industry.
And this is why they want less regulation. This is why they want smaller government. This is why they want to do away with, like, I don't know, the EPA. They want to do away with the educational department because they want to keep it dumb and stupid. Because if they do away with education public wise, then the only people that will be able to go to school are the people that can afford it.
Correct. And then if you have a workforce that has just a basic education, again, I'm not knocking because everyone has a calling to do certain tasks in life. But if you have people of a certain level of education basics, then they're locked into a certain job aspiration. Again, and then they're then forced to shop at certain industries. Again, not knocking, but you have Dollar General, and then you have Walmarts and so forth like that, where you only earn a certain amount of money. You can never even think about going to Target. Or you can't go to Kohl's because you're just locked in because that is what your income can hold, but also that's what avenue that you could shop
based off what you got in your pocket.
Exactly. So that's one of the interesting factors that there's a domino effect. Again, everyone has a calling, and everyone serves in society that we all rely on, some component. But that's another thing as far as dumbing it down, but also dumbing it down because the more educated or more informed you are, not only you will be an educated worker or contributing to society, but a voter, which can help change society and change the world. And that's what they don't want you to know. They don't want you to have. Keep in mind, at the conclusion of the Civil War, Black men were first introduced to voting, not women yet, but then they started being they were elected to different parts of government, in state government and also in Congress. And the whites were like, wait a minute.
In the South.
Particularly in the South.
Yeah,
particularly in the South.
Yeah.
But they were like, wait a minute. They're coming in there changing the status quo. And what did they come up with? With not only the introduction of Jim Crow laws, but changing the voting laws. And so to minimize their influence, which is currently going on in former Confederate states as a result of the Holder and Shelby case.
I guess we'll just be going back to the jelly bean count.
Oh, that's what they want us to do. That's exactly.
And we'll have to read the entirety of the Constitution.
They don't want us to have what did former First Lady Michelle Obama says? She's afraid Donald Trump is trying to pursue a black job, something along those lines.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Because, black man had that job.
Yeah, exactly. They want to limit
She
us.
said that was a black job
That was a black job.
that he was pursuing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Donald Trump, man, that guy is. I look. People want to vote for him. Do you? I'm glad that we live in a society where it's still a democracy. It's still a Democrat. You still have to vote. It's a democratic society. So that means you have the right to say or not say, but you have the right to vote, and I got the right to vote. You got the right to have an opinion, and so do I. If we become a dictatorship, all I need, then we won't have that right. We won't have that choice. And like my man said, well, if you vote for me in 4 years, you won't have to worry about that.
He's talking to a particular community, and when he talks to the audience, he's talking specifically to white audiences. Because that's usually what he draws the crowd. You know what? I don't think, as a co-chair of the Democratic Party, as far as with the Black Caucus, I often say there's nothing wrong with being a Republican. Because there's certain policies that Republican have led and have been beneficial to society as a whole. There's nothing wrong with that. But with Donald Trump, he is not necessarily Republican. It shouldn't be an R next to his name. It should be C. He's a con artist. And the establishment that are supporting him, he's just a useful idiot. Because he's too dumb to actually know the metrics of how government works. But with people surrounding him using government to their benefit. Again, he's just a useful idiot. But he plays on that. He's a character. And so when you see when he goes out, he performs. He doesn't have a policy in place. He's just performing. Hence why with the RNC at their Republican convention, they brought out Hulk Hogan. There was no policy. They brought out Hulk Hogan. Do I love Hulk Hogan? Absolutely. I love the wrestling. I'm a big fan. But what does he have to be on the stage for? He's an entertainer. Trump and his whole party are just entertainers, but the establishment, he's just a useful idiot.
Well, I just got one more thing I like to say, and I want to talk to those brothers out there who call themselves, who don't like Kamala Harris to be president, who got something nasty to say about her. You brothers better start learning how to protect your sisters. She is one of our sisters. And we as brothers, we as men, that's our duty. That's our job, is to protect our sisters, especially being a black man. So stand up for your sister. Right on? Okay. That was my little tidbit that I wanted.
Well, amen.
But that convention, you been checking out the convention?
Yeah. I believe it or not, I am passionate about politics.
All right. No.
Yeah.
Really?
So hence why I have a podcast for those who are listening and watching. It's called Cuckoo for Politics, and you can find me on Spotify, Apple, soon to be YouTube. I'm moving in that direction.
Right on.
And major platforms, even on Amazon podcast streaming. But as passionate as I am, I even watch the Republican convention and the Democratic convention. Why? So I just want to hear what they have to say. Granted, I am passionate and a strong proponent of the Democratic Party. But like I said before, there are times when a Republican candidate or politician, for that matter, have come up with some good ideas that have been implemented that we actually benefit from.
Mitt Romney. You know, they talk about the Affordable Care Act and stuff like that. He actually implemented
in
Massachusetts.
Yeah, exactly.
Romney Care.
Yeah, Romney Care.
Yeah,
Yes.
And it was very much what you see in the Affordable Care Act,
which is Obamacare.
Which is Obamacare.
Exactly.
But that's been going on for a long time. But you were saying that there are some Republicans that have done some good things, and I just wanted to say that was one of them.
Yeah. It's a great example. That's back in 2012 when he was running to challenge Barack Obama, but he was also a governor of Massachusetts. But yeah, there's even governor. I think I want to say he's a former governor of Maryland. He was termed out, but there are there. So for people to think, and I think this is the problem that we have with our current political system, because of the two major political parties, you're either on one team or the other. You're either, and if the person's a Republican, they're an enemy, and a Democrat, they're an enemy. No, we're not the enemy.
Right.
You're probably more in line with one party or the other. But to look at a candidate and say, okay, you're evil, and you're saying to people who are just saying derogatory comments about Kamala Harris, that's just uncalled for. She's now, what is it? Well, Michael, people are saying derogatory comments about Donald Trump. Rightfully so, though, because he puts it out there. He's an easy target.
They call it a boomerang.
it's just that's it. He's just an easy target. But every time he opens his mouth, you're like, oh my gosh, what is he saying now? Not about policy. It's just dumb things. Like, when did you become black, by the way?
I don't know. I was born. That would have been June 17th, 19 free civil rights.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. So that's that.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry about that. I got caught up in that June 17th thing, and that's funny. I think that's
funny.
Yeah, the free civil rights.
Free civil rights.
Yeah. Well, just to talk about even the civil rights, you see, that's been taken away.
Yeah.
And I've always, people that know me, they'll tell you, I've always not so much been for us fighting for civil rights. I thought we should have fought for human rights, because who else fought for civil rights? All the people that been here in this country, we're the only ones that had to fight for integration. No one else was integrated in all the people that came into this country, all the different races, all the different ethnicities came. Why are we the only ones that had to fight for integration? And integration, to me, what happened is we became more segregated as a people. We just started the light skin and the dark skin and the good hair and the bad hair, right? And you could live over here, or you can emulate into that community a lot better than I can, because you're of a lighter complexion. It made us more segregated. And this is why even to today's time, we have a hard time really coming together and monopolizing on one thought.
Yeah, you're right. But I want to say that is what word I'm trying to look for. The powers that be, people who are influenced, or people who have or established in industries and so forth like that, they don't wish to share what they achieved or what they got. Let me give you an example. Elon Musk. He came up, he's not the originator of the Tesla, as far as the electric car. However, he was able to brand it very well, market it very well, and was able to get people introduced to it. When it came out, it was a very inexpensive car. Today, it's still inexpensive, but this is my point. He was able to work with government to provide tax incentives for people to purchase the electric vehicle. During that time, for years, people were like, I'm not interested. But the government says, oh, a tax incentive? Oh, let me get it. So now you buy that car, which is expensive, but now you get the tax write-off. Then you get comfortable with, oh, I like the fact that I don't have to worry about gas anymore. Then he takes all that in investment and builds the infrastructure, Tesla charging stations, all over the country. He uses innovation. So while you're driving to work or any place, you can say, oh, here's a charging station. You don't have that range anxiety. He built it up. Then car manufacturers came like, you know what? Tesla has been doing it well. We have observed what works, what has not worked. Then other car manufacturers jumped in and says, you know what? We're going to purchase a car. We're going to make a car, electric car, and see if we could get it to the consumer. They also jumped in and says, you know what? Let's get tax incentives. Buy it and roll it out with the infrastructure plan to make it more easier for anybody, as long as a car is made, I think has a certain components that makes in the U.S., which helps secure jobs for U.S. workers. But now car manufacturers, other are jumping in on the EV market. Now, what does Elon Musk say? Elon Musk says, you know what? We got to change that. That's why he's supporting Donald Trump, because Donald Trump wants to get rid of the EV credit. Because Tesla, the corporation itself, has already made mountains of money, but it doesn't want to share in that others as far as money is concerned or the profits. It wants to dominate the market, which comes to saying why we're divided is just because there are those that don't want us to share in the prosperity. They want us to keep us in a certain level of where we need to be.
So it was never true integration.
No,
it was more because we didn't integrate our finances. We didn't integrate our resources.
We get distracted.
No, we didn't integrate any of those things. The only thing we did mostly was try to emulate. We tried to what I could see is you want to live where people don't want you to live, but they're fighting like hell to get a house in the neighborhood that you're not wanted.
Yeah.
Instead of building up your own community.
You get distracted. The keys again. So you get a little bit of money. You focus on getting new sneakers or the latest trend, but not realizing you should save that money to invest. Again, there's nothing wrong with awarding yourself. You reach you get a nice watch, whatever the case may be, but try to invest that extra money instead of wasting it because you want to share in that prosperity.
Yeah, you want to do more like Madam Harris did. She went to college all those years, but while she was in college, where did she work?
She worked at McDonald's.
Yo,
who did not have 2 or 3 jobs in college to scrape by and study at the same time?
Right, but that means she understands the value of a dollar.
Exactly.
She understands the value of hard work.
And the thing is, her acquired wealth over time was hard work, and it wasn't given. So the candidate that's running now for the Republican nominee, who's a Republican, candidate, was given money. Squandered it, used the system under bankruptcy law to reorganize not once, not twice, countless amount of times with failed business.
And then change the law to make it in their favor.
It goes back to my Elon Musk, because the fact is, why we fight each other, because they just want the laws to benefit them only and not everyone else.
And this is where lobbyists come in.
Correct.
And this is why I always say, that's another thing I say, is really we need to take money out of government.
Very much so. And now lobbyists is it gets a bad name. But let me clarify why I say that. As if you are elected into Congress, State House, you name it, and your background is not in agriculture, but you sit on a committee that deals with agriculture. The lobbyists, let's say myself, would come in just to inform you of the law that you're looking to consider its impact, beneficial or not. That's the job of a lobbyist. Now, the other flip side, which gets a bad name, is it's not to not only educate you, but to give you a sizable amount of money to say, ignore that law.
You mean like the recruiters?
Because
that's pretty much what a lobbyist is.
Yeah.
Right? Once he gets you, he got you.
Yeah, big pharma. There's a reason why we have, if you ever noticed, products that are produced in the U.S., particularly like lotions and so forth, have more impurities in them than elsewhere. Why is that? Because, and when I mean impurities, not that they're putting poison in you, but there's certain chemicals that are outlawed elsewhere. So a product like Vaseline, any type of lotion per se, in the US, it may have maybe 4,000 chemicals added to it. But if you go a country in Europe or in Asia, instead of 4,000, it may just have 1,000.
Yeah, they call it deregulation.
They call it deregulation. That's what they don't want. So they don't want an oversight on their product. Look at Boeing. Because they were pushing to get aircrafts out to benefit the shareholders, they were not able to have that cross-reference of people checking the product as that plane went down the assembly line. Hence, when that 737 was an eye-opener, and that's because it was less oversight. This is where government comes in. It's a beneficial, because we want, you and I are not scientists or engineers, but we're hoping that the government hires people who are scientists and engineers to oversight a particular product or a vehicle of sorts.
I hope somebody informs people like, I don't know, Clarence Thomas that they're not scientists. Did you see what they?
Clarence
So
Thomas.
so
That's
here it
another
is.
one.
You got the EPA, right?
Mhm.
You know, Trump and all of these guys that say, hey, there's no problem where everything is good. There's no real global warming. It's a Chinese hoax. And we don't think that the EPA should have the power to say that there is. So we're going to give that power to the judges. So you're going to take the power away from the scientists and give it to someone who you don't know what you don't know, and they don't know. And that's one of the problems. And like this, what is it? I think that's in that Project 2025. You check that out yet?
I did, and one of the things it's scary in a sense, because that's really Trump, the plan that he wants. And when you're talking about the environment, I think in the state of Florida, they're not allowed. I think they can't even put. They can't use the word green. They took it out even their policy. There's a word that they can't use. So when an administrator in the state of Florida is trying to either enforce or they can't use that word, clean energy, stuff like that. They're not allowed to say that. It's an interesting dynamics. But to your point of Project 2025, excuse me, there are components of it to weaken the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
Most, I think people don't realize, again, it goes back to our early conversation, their voice, the power of their vote that they can do. When Project 25, one of the things it wants to do is erode federal law, federal influence.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the argument, states' rights. We need to push the agenda out of the federal government to the state because the state will determine. I get it to a certain degree because each state has its own ecosystem. There's a certain culture. New York is different from Kentucky. Kentucky is different from Arizona, and so forth.
Yeah.
And I get certain things of it. But there are certain things that overlay that kind of that everyone has a benefit for.
Hold that thought for a second. Hey, again, you've tuned in to GenesisRadio.com. My name is Kendall, and I am the host of the Empowerment Show. If you'd like to give us a call to speak to this young man, give us a call at 888-304-4401, or you can give us a text. You can also view us on Facebook. You can view us live at GenesisRadio.com. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Right?
No, the conversation was flowing that I forgot we're actually doing a show. So a tribute to your skills, my friend. So that's good.
I told you before, that's my job.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just felt like we're just chit chatting. Yes, I see these things, but I'm not even thinking about it. But you're right. You're doing a show. You got a job to do.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. I think I was going with Project 2025.
That's
the
what we're
erosion of
talking.
the federal
Project
government.
2025.
I think your listeners and viewers should take a look at it. There's many YouTube channels by reputable news organizations that have gone in depth on Project 2025. There's also even elected officials that have actually voiced their concerns or raised the alarm of what that could do and what its impact. On the surface, it sounds, states' rights. Yeah, what's wrong with that? But what they're trying to do is erode federal. And the federal is what we could, if we don't succeed in the state level, we can appeal to the federal level. That's our safe haven. Let me give you an example of historical lesson. Not you, but and just to bring it into context. We remember we were taught or watched movies on the bus boycott in Alabama. Rosa Parks refuses to sit behind the bus, back of the bus. And she was not the first, but the fact that she was she was there at the right time, the focus. So what had happened was,
and she wasn't pregnant.
And she was no. But yes, again, that's history and all that stuff. But she was the face. She was the right face the right everything, school teacher, everything. She was just perfect, the perfect profile. I say that because they fought it in the county level, but once they won and achieved, which they sometimes call the birth of the civil rights movement, and Dr. King was elevated to a whole different level, they went national afterwards because they took that law that they were able to succeed in the state. They said, you know what? Blacks don't have this issue only in Alabama. Segregation is nationwide. How do we take it to the next level? They were able to seek legislation in the Congress to get it passed, and that was the federal to desegregate. Granted, there was also the Supreme Court decision by Brown versus Board of Education, and so the list goes on. But it was the federal level that helped us in the civil rights movement. Imagine if we just only could go as far as on a state level. That means other states that enacted such ridiculous laws will still be pushing that segregation. That's what's so important about making sure not only the state we get equal rights and so forth, but it's the federal level, because once you hit the federal level, you can't stop it.
Seems to me we never left segregation, honestly. I think a lot of us are still segregated. You got white neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, Asian neighborhoods, Spanish neighborhoods. We're still kind of more or less segregated.
Do you think
that we have the right to go across the street if we want to? But see, that thing about the states' rights, when they say they want to bring it down, this is the thing that bothers me about it. You give it to the state's right, but the state doesn't vote on it. Because what happens is the governor has the power to say, okay, yeah, we're going to implement this law.
Not necessarily the governor. It's the state legislature.
Yeah, right, the state legislature.
So if the state legislature are not on board with it, it goes nowhere.
But
so
the people don't get an opportunity to vote and say, hey, yeah, we'll accept that.
No, you do in an election. But the problem is people only tend to focus, statistics show, they only vote in big presidential elections or a big gubernatorial election. But it depends on who is on the top of the ticket. But the thing is, and you hear that even in the Democratic conventions, it's not just electing the ticket; it's the down ballot. And I think they often say, "Send me a Democratic Congress, I could get these things done." And that's another thing too. Young people say, Democrats don't do anything; they haven't done anything. I said, you have to understand the system. It's not like that candidate can't do anything. And I give an example.
And I'm gonna tell you, half the time that's not true, because if you actually did their research, because most of these people they don't do any research. They listen to what someone else said, and they run and go with that. But if they actually did their research, they will find out that most of those candidates, they have a long resume of things that they have accomplished. I take, for instance, like Tara Probst.
Oh yeah, State Representative Tara Probst.
Oh my God! You want to look? I've seen her fight. I've seen her do her thing. I've watched her, and I've watched her for years. And she's one of those people you can't say lesser of the two evils.
No.
Okay.
Yo, she is. I have to say, she has street cred.
Yeah.
She comes in with a rep. She knows her stuff, and it's just. And I think she's one of the attributes that I give her is that she'll take a concept and then break it down so you will understand. So she has a way to voice to talk in Harrisburg, but then she switches up, and when she talks in front of the community, she's not dumbing it down. She's making it relatable.
And she knows every word to Rob Bass.
Yeah. Well, you know, is she a 70s or 80s kids? Yeah, who knows? Yeah, but she knows. Yes.
I'm way out of it.
Yeah. For sure. But yes. She, I think at a function, an NAACP function, gala, they were playing jams, hip hop. I'm looking at her. I'm like, oh, what's up, girl? I see you.
She knows
she knows the stuff.
And you have other sisters out here like Tamiko Patterson. Right now, she's at the party. She's out there in Chicago. She was putting some stuff up, but I mean, all the accomplishments that she made. When you actually go through her resume, you're like, wow, oh my God. And all of the things that she's been able to accomplish, you know?
Oh yeah. Is that time for us to go?
What's happening, Mr. T?
That's your phone.
Not my phone.
It's somebody's phone.
Oh, yo, I am so sorry. How is that possible? I put that on Do Not Disturb.
Oh, it was your phone.
Yeah, it was my phone.
It was your fault.
Yo, I apologize to the listeners. and to the viewers.
Listen. The man is a professional.
No.
You know.
I was like, where did that come from?
Mhm. I was just trying to give a little tribute to a couple of women that we have locally, since we've been talking about local politics, and I like to say that local politics really is the politics that we mainly need to get involved in. We need to vote for the dog catcher as well as the president. You know, we need to take it on down the line. And I can tell you, in Monroe County, the women of Monroe County, Maureen Madden, you know, she's another one.
She is. She was the first in our community to get into State House. What I like about Maureen Madden, state rep, she was pardon. She lost once. She got back on again.
Mhm.
She lost the second time. She got back and won on the third time.
Mhm.
And so you're not going to win all the time.
Mhm.
And her opponent, and I'll give him credit, the name escapes me, her opponent at the time. But when he lost to Maureen, because he was the incumbent,
Mhm.
he came to the Democratic Party
Mhm.
and congratulated
That's
her.
what you're supposed to do, though.
But
It's not supposed to be about a party. It's supposed to be about the people.
Yeah, and I'll give him, and forgive me because I don't remember. Parker, David Parker.
Oh, you're talking about David Parker?
Yes.
Well, he went to run again. He ran against Christine Wilkerson.
Yeah, as far as commissioner. But what I liked about him is the fact that he went into the lion's den
Mm-hmm.
and congratulated her. This is what you're not seeing in the national, particularly on the MAGA heads. They're just like, no, you cheated. No, you lost.
Mm-hmm.
Accept defeat. And it hurts because you put all your energy when you're running for office, financially, spiritually, physically.
Well, look, I could always tell you that Ish rolls downhill.
So explain that one.
Okay, well, who's at the top at the time? Mr. Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
yes.
so what's going to roll downhill?
He.
And what's everybody else going to fall? They're going to fall right in line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if he's giving you nonsense and BS, what are they going to give you?
They're going to do the same thing.
And it's going to go right on down the line.
Yeah, and
look, we got a young lady here. I don't really care for all of her policies, but Rosemary Brown, have you met her?
Yes, state representative.
She's a very likable person.
She is.
I don't care for her policies, but her and I, we can sit down and have a conversation. We're real easy. You know, as long as we don't talk politics, we're good to go. You know, she's all about the veterans because I went to go sit down and eat breakfast with her. That she invited me to come down and eat breakfast.
Okay.
It was pretty cool. So she's all about taking care of the veterans. She is about taking care of the family. Like I said, I don't agree with all of her policies, but she's a pretty good person, and she's a powerful person, and she's a senator.
But it was respectful.
Right.
She respected you.
Right.
And the veterans there.
Right.
So you got to look at it. Yeah. Again, you may not like the politics, but you have to respect the person.
Right.
So she did. She's an example of what other politicians like a Maureen Madden, Tara Probst, even though they may not get along, as long as they respect the
well,
person.
they do. I mean, I see them at the different events together.
Yeah, and they're laughing and joking.
Right.
And they have their side. I'm sure there's side marks, but nevertheless, they're respected because they know where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to be applauded, unlike certain candidates on the national scene.
Yeah, well, on the national scene, it's the only thing I think that we're looking at is a lot of violence and a lot of hatred, a lot of I'm going to get you back, a lot of revenge. That's what I hear coming from, especially from the Republican side. I don't hear too much about different real policies that they have in place, other than I'm going to get you. Or they criticize everything that the Democrats do.
What's a four-letter word that a Republican, let me clarify, a MAGA Republican does not know how to spell or say?
What is that?
Plan. They don't have a plan.
Right.
If you break it down and ask them, I'll give you an example. Inflation's high. Granted, what are you going to do? It's silence.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna do with immigration. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of it. Okay, what are you gonna do? It's silence.
Well, they had a plan.
Build a wall. It appealed to you in the heart and the mind.
Mhm.
But I go further back. I'm going to run. This is with the Tea Party. This happened during Obama. We're going to get rid of Obamacare. Yes, get rid of Obamacare. Many of them won on that platform.
Right.
Get rid of Obamacare.
What do you got to put in its place?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They don't call it Obamacare anymore.
Yeah, but they don't because it's successful now.
I gotta tell
And
you, it was never truly called Obamacare. That was a nickname. It was the Affordable Care Act.
We know, but they
And
don't-
that's
what
what
they call it
Roosevelt.
now.
Roosevelt, I think, was one of the first presidents to actually introduce it and try to get it passed.
Yeah.
You know, or was it Truman? Maybe it was Truman.
I think it was. I want to say it was Truman. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
give
yeah.
you that. I want to say it's Truman, but it's been started for that long. But again, they don't have a plan.
Mhm.
So when you ask them, how are you going to bring these things down, or how are you going to address it, they don't have a plan. So they distract you with the keys again.
Mhm.
It's those people that are coming for your jobs. Even Trump said it on where the whole world to see. Yeah, we're going to change things. So the blacks and Hispanics, will have. What black job is that? That's what a coin phrase.
So what's the black job?
What's the black job?
What are you talking about? We're at McDonald's.
Yeah.
That's a black job.
More of a servant role.
Yeah,
That's the
there
only
you go.
thing.
Yeah.
that's-
Uh-huh.
I'm like, when people think he's not a racist, he's 100% racist. 100%.
Look, I tell stories back about when my mother was going to get an apartment, and it was in one of Donald Trump's father, he owned one of the
Mhm.
buildings, and we weren't allowed to get an apartment there. It's probably racist, but they told my mother that she couldn't get because she had kids, she had children, and I thought that was ridiculous. And I think that's against the law today. You can't do that. But they were refusing to rent my mother an apartment because she had children. And that's the kind of people that Donald Trump is.
Exactly. I still remember Central Park.
Oh,
Central Park
please. And he still hasn't apologized for
No,
that.
that to me, I'm like, I was there,
Mhm.
meaning in the city. I saw those kids. That could have been me rounded up.
Those kids could have been executed. Honestly, those
yes.
children could have been executed.
He has not and you know
Okay.
what bothers me?
Mm.
Because you mentioned Clarence Thomas, but it bothers me that even black people don't. There are some black people don't see it. Ben Carson, a genius, a medical genius, is in the history books. When you go medical school, they are teaching about his practice,
Mhm.
what he's done.
Mhm.
A genius.
Mhm.
Can't take that away from him. But when Trump gets elected, he puts Ben Carson as for Secretary of Housing and
not medical.
not medical.
Not medical.
It's not like when Ben Carson was running for office, those are the key issues
Mhm.
when he was running in the Republican primary.
Mhm.
No, Trump got him and put him in a job that was considered their black job. You do housing and development. That's your job.
Yeah, because he actually came from the project.
What did he do? And for
So because he came from the projects, he understands those people.
he was removed from the projects. Again, I'm not taking away from his medical achievement, but again, I use that as an example, and there are times when I see, there's a joke, but I'll see brothers who will talk to me. They're Republican. Okay, that's fine, but then they become MAGA, and I hear the conspiracy theories. And let's say I'm talking to let's say you're that person. I'm talking to the brother, so-called brother. And his name is Clyde. I call him Ben. He's like, no, my name is Clyde. And he'll keep talking with his point of view. Then I'll say, I understand, Clarence. They're like, what are you talking about? My name is Clyde. I said, yes, but you don't understand. You're not even there. There's a word for that.
Mhm.
And we know it begins with uncle.
Mhm.
And you either call it Uncle Carson.
Well, we don't want to see. I'm going to tell people about that's another. We're going to get in time. But I want to just get the record straight about Uncle Tom. Read Uncle Tom's Cabin. Okay. And after you read Uncle Tom's Cabin, I think all the negative stuff that people want to talk or say about Uncle Tom and want to use his name in a negative way, I think that would change because Uncle Tom did a lot of great things. We talk about the Underground Railroad. He was a part of that because he also took a lot of slaves, put them in the basement, helped them out, and helped them move along. And when the white man came along to take the slaves, he didn't give them up. And that's how he ended up getting murdered. Okay? So
and thanks for correcting me, but it's just because of the language or terminology.
well, for years we
use that. But
this is how when I tell people We are a people who have been brainwashed.
Yes,
Because
correct.
we do things
Correct.
unconsciously.
Yeah. And that was unconscious. That was unconscious.
Right. But this is what's been put into our conscious. So when right away that's brought. Oh yeah, that's next. That's what we do. So what, like my man said, we have to be re-educated.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And I think more or less that's we're being more aware of these things as we have the tools, teachers, education. You have not social media, but access to more information to clarify. So when you just made that comment to correct me, your listeners and viewers could easily Google like, oh yeah, I've been hearing that terminology in a negative way for years. Now I get it. But that's quick versus all right. Now I got to take a trip to the library. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm of the age. I'm becoming one of the ancestors, I guess.
Okay.
And I guess it's kind of my job to push that information down, and that's what we do here at the radio station at GenesisRadio.com. We are here to inform, to empower the community, and we do that by giving you information. As you can see, the type of guests that we have on are professional people who have something to say, people who are pillars of the community. So we're very, very happy to have these type of people on our show, and look for the future. We have more coming. We have a lot more coming. And I hope that in the future you guys will definitely enjoy the show. Again, you can always call in. The telephone number is 888-304-4401. Now, if there's any type of topics or things that you're interested in, send us a text. Maybe we can get a chance to bring somebody in to answer some of the questions that you may be asking. Okay. Again, we have Mr. Michael
DeRosier.
Because I'm not going there. No.
Mr. D, as they also call me.
Okay, we have Mr. D. We'll call him Mr. D. Thank you very much for coming in, and hope we can have a part 2.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for inviting me to the
our show is only an hour, and there's still a lot more that we can get involved
I'm
in
sure.
To talk about. So possibly somewhere down the line in the future, maybe before they push the button to say vote, we can have you come back in and talk to some of the people.
I would love that. And hey, you can also come on my show, Cooking for Politics.
Right on.
All right.
Okay. Thank you again.